Let's take a look at some of the biases that can hinder the decision-making processes in organizations. The overconfidence bias, for example, is the tendency to be too confident in our knowledge, to overestimate our ability to make good decisions, to perform well, and so on. Interestingly, the research suggests that people who have the weakest skill set are most likely to overestimate themselves. The anchoring bias occurs when people fixate on the initial information that they received about a particular problem or issue, instead of adjusting their perception as they receive more information. Anchors are widely used by people in a variety of industries: real estate, advertising, management, law, politics. Let me show you an example. Imagine I asked a group of students to estimate whether the Mississippi River is more or less than 5,000 miles long. The anchoring and adjustment effect predicts the group will give estimations close to or around 5,000 because my question anchored their guess and prompted them to adjust their estimations accordingly. The actual length of the Mississippi River is 2,320 feet, about half of the anchor point that I gave in the question. Escalation of commitment is another bias. This occurs when we stick with an option, even when we have clear evidence that it's wrong, that it's not working. Our commitment to the option escalates even as its value de-escalates. In the 1980s, the Parks Department in New York City started to repair an abandoned skating rink. The project soon began to fall apart under their management, but the city refused to give up and continued to spend more and more money trying to recoup the investment that they had already made. Unfortunately, after several years and wasting $13 million, the city never finished the rink, and a private developer eventually had to take over the project. The confirmation bias affects all of us on a daily basis. This occurs when we seek out information that confirms or supports our existing perception of reality, including our past choices, our expectations, attitudes, beliefs, and we discount or ignore information that contradicts our existing perception. Part of the reason we do this is to protect our self-esteem. We want to feel good about ourselves and how we see the world. Information that conflicts with our perception threatens our self-esteem, and we ignore that information to make ourselves feel good. Of course, this happens without our awareness. Imagine you're watching the news, and the newscasters begin talking about something that you don't agree with. What do? If you change the channel, the confirmation bias may be playing a role in your decision to do so. The availability bias can also be a problem for us on a daily basis. This is the tendency for us to make decisions and judgments and evaluations based on the information that we have. Managers all over this country do performance appraisals every year. They likely give more weight to recent behaviors as opposed to behaviors that occurred 9 months to a year ago. This is because they base their decisions on what they can remember, what is available to them in their memory. Another reason why I encourage managers to keep work logs. Write down what your employees do well, what they don't do well, the dates, the times. Keep records, even if your organization doesn't require it. And finally, the hindsight bias. This is the tendency to, after an outcome is already known, to falsely believe that we could have predicted it. Hindsight is 20/20. It's easy after the outcome has presented itself to say, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen. One of the major issues with the hindsight bias is it prevents us from learning from our mistakes.